Hi.
Es geht alle jeden Dezember und wieder ein Mai. Dann ist es mit Hitler und den Bonzen vorbei. Von all dem Gesindel wird Deutschland dann frei.
Retreat on all fronts.
Hitler asks a Jewish fortune teller,
Why are things going so badly?
It's the Jewish generals. Hitler cries,
But I haven't got any.
but the enemy has.
While Hitler tried in vain to turn his luck around, people in Berlin tried to keep up appearances. In footage from 1942, there's no indication of the war apart from how people were dressed.
Das Volk wurde immer uniformierter.
Germans, the people, were increasingly being put into uniform. Everyone had a uniform. In 1943, I was in Berlin on the Kurfürstendamm in uniform myself as an anti-aircraft volunteer. It was my third uniform, and I noticed that 1 in 3 people were in uniform. And they all saluted, like this or this. The place was crawling with them.
Es wimmelte von solchen Figuren.
The rapid spread of uniforms became more grist to the comedian's mill.
The military will from now on only appear in civilian clothing. Otherwise, no one will be able to tell them apart from ordinary citizens.
Despite the efforts of this feeble humor, the facts could no longer be suppressed. The attacks were getting closer. People were dying in bombing raids. The wounded were being pulled from the rubble. The people bore it with quiet stoicism. Even when entire streets were destroyed, people managed to keep their sense of humor.
One chap says to another, I was at the railway station the other day when suddenly my suitcase disappeared. The other chap says, that's nothing. I just got off my train the other day. When I turned around, the entire railway station had disappeared.
Yet civilians slowly began to despair at the inexorable stream of bad news.
Hitler, it was said, wanted to get a first-hand impression of the sinking morale of the German people. Incognito, of course, so he shaved off his moustache.
Excuse me. What do you think of the Führer? I can't tell you out here in the middle of the street. Come over here. I support the Führer.
I tell these jokes, but don't hold me responsible for how lame they are. Apparently at the time they were so good, in inverted commas, that people laughed at them. A military convoy drives through Berlin after the first bombing raids. There's rubble lying about and the people lining the road are cheering. So Goering says, that's interesting that people are well disposed towards us. I'd never have thought so after all the unfortunate bombing raids on their city. But then it turns out that people are cheering because of the slogan on the official car's spare tire. Wir fahren fort. Or, we're driving a Ford, which can also mean, we're getting out of here. I don't find the joke funny because top Nazis would never have driven a Ford. Only a Mercedes.
For Goering, it was his vanity which came under comedic attack.
Hermann has copies of his medals made in rubber, so he doesn't have to take them off when he gets into the bar.
Though some Germans clearly actually quite liked their fat Reichsmarschall.
Goering was quite popular with people, right up until he committed suicide. I know that after 45 the word was that Goering was the best of the bunch. But if you read your history books, you'll see that he was, in fact, the biggest mass murderer of them all.
And this mass murderer enjoyed the best of everything, unlike the admiring man in the street. With the war came food shortages. The era of the thin stew began.
Not much brain and plenty of brown sauce.
People were quick to comment.
The butter rationing didn't go down well with the people. They were resentful. Look at Goering. He stuffs himself and we're starving.
Hey, did you know that Goering's butler resigned because his job became too dangerous?
No, really? Why dangerous?
Well, whenever he goes down into the wine cellar, he slips on the butter, and if he doesn't grab hold of one of the salamis, he falls into a barrel of eggs.
Our enemies say we have no meatballs, but we do. We're just too proud to show them our balls.
Germany after the turning point in the war. The Allied bombing raids are causing devastating damage to the cities. German civilians spend night after night in bunkers and emergency air raid cellars. The only refuge for many is the world of macabre humor.
Oh, you know what?
What?
There's a new miracle weapon. They're sending granddads to the front, armed with sickles and rubber hoses.
What for?
Simple. The Russians laugh themselves to death and we win the war.
Berlin was being bombed to the ground, but the Berliners refused to lose their sense of humor.
The Allies had better stop the bombing soon, or Goebbels will blast them with a devastating speech.
Despite everything, morale was still high, and the majority firmly supported Hitler. Not least because of the pleasant diversions provided by the feel-good Nazi film industry.
In seiner trockenen Lausbubenart spielt Rühmann die Rolle des Primaners Pfeiffer mit 3F. Augenblicklich kontrolliert er noch die Kameraeinstellungen und hat alle Hände voll zu tun.
Können wir?
Bitte? Wollen Sie denn noch? Herr Professor, ich weiß nicht, ob das was zu bedeuten hat, aber ich kann gar nicht mehr reden.
Was können Sie nicht? Und wenn dann der Alkohol...
Rühmann took great pains to keep people laughing while the world outside collapsed. The foundering Nazi regime flattered him in return.
There were many actors who were well regarded. They were highly paid and well looked after. Like Hans Albers. But he never returned the favor. He married a Jewish woman, Hansi Burg. And even when Goebbels and Hitler tried to interfere, he refused to leave her. We shouldn't forget that. Hans Albers was proud. He stayed in Germany. And that's why they fawned on him, because imagine if he had lived. It would have been a catastrophe for Goebbels. So that's why he looked after his actors.
Und deswegen hat sie alle gepflegt.
Unlike this man, Robert Dorsey, who played alongside Heinz Rühmann in light-hearted comedies and was anything but loyal to the regime.
Aber dann bin ich langsam dahinter gekommen, dass das Rauchen eine vollkommen überflüssige Beschäftigung ist. Und seit diesem Tage rühre ich keine Zigarette mehr an.
The smooth-talking charmer despised the Nazis and took every opportunity to say so as loudly as possible. He would attend film parties and regale everyone with vicious jokes about Hitler and Goebbels.
Dürfte ich mal Ihre Zigarette im Moment mal. Ich will das jetzt mal zeigen. Sehen Sie, ich rauche doch jetzt, nicht wahr? Ach, gar nicht. Es gehört natürlich Wille dazu. Wille. Entweder man hat den Willen, oder man hat ihn nicht, nicht wahr?
Listen, heard this one. Why is there so little cooking fat? Because Goebbels keeps giving all these oily speeches. Oh, and by the way, don't you think it's astonishing that Goebbels hasn't blamed his club foot on the Jews?